Wilds of Eldraine is my first time as a Magic player entering the world of Eldraine. I always loved the art cards and from the adventures and just the showcase things that I had seen from Eldraine cards in the past. So I was really excited to go to this plane for the first time myself. I think that it's a beautiful world, and I actually watched the video that Wizards of the Coast put out that was narrated by Becca Scott. She had a lot of really good commentary and ideas about not only the lore of what was happening in Eldraine, but all of these fun characters that we might be seeing for the first time, but also some old favorites, expanding their stories. So the fact that she gave us so much content to understanding the interaction that was happening on the world, how all of these pieces are coming together, and what we might expect to see for some interaction, I thought was very interesting, and so I'm very appreciative of her for giving us that content. She also let us know some of the new things that were going to be happening from the set, such as the fact that we're getting a new mechanic, which are our roll cards. I think that those are a really interesting gameplay add-on into the way that we're interacting with games. I think seeing the difference of how it happens between formats, such as Modern versus Commander, I think is going to be interesting. As a Commander player, I'm really excited for these. I think they should be utilized pretty often, but we'll see what ends up happening in the real world. But other than that, we're also getting things like adventure cards having more than one color. So that's exciting too, but she's going to go over all of that in her video, again, put on by Wizards of the Coast. So make sure you go check that out. It was really helpful for me understanding this plane. So I was really excited for that. But also, what I was really excited for is all of the arts that we were getting from this set. I think it is a beautiful set. I know just the fairy world and all the enchanting things of this fairy tale-esque place that we are visiting, and this lore, these characters, I think is so fitting for a lot of the artwork that we are getting from these wonderful artists. So in today's video, we are putting aside the Enchanting Tales cards because that's going to be a whole thing on its own. But we are going to be looking at the top 15 prettiest cards from Wilds of Eldraine. Wizards of the Coast says that Wilds of Eldraine is your first look into the multiverse following the Phyrexian invasion. While our heroes may have stopped Elesh Norn's plans, the consequences of this are on full display here in Wilds of Eldraine. You'll meet old friends and enemies, explore new corners of Eldraine, and discover how the multiverse is healing from the invasion. This set is full of characters and worlds and just storylines that are going to be very interesting following the invasion. There's lots of chaos still happening, but following that, there's also going to be a lot of beauty. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with our first. We're going to go through Ruberg order as always. So our first card is going to be Break the Spell. I think that this has high contrast and is overall a very beautiful card. We see our Ice Queen here, giving a powerful healing kiss, it appears, which would make sense because this card destroys target enchantment. So we are seeing that something has been destroyed, a life here, but the fact that there is glowing and healing happening through this healing kiss, I think is very beautiful. And we are breaking the spell, breaking the curse, hoping that there will be light on the other side of this darkness. And even though she is an Ice Queen, I think that the idea that she is able to heal and bring warmth to what is happening here in this world still, she still serves a purpose. So I think that the artwork here really supports that idea that every character has a role to play, which is very interesting. And we shouldn't just look at enemies as the bad guys or something to fight against, but that they are their own character, they have their own purpose, their own storyline, their own character arc, and if we follow those, there's still beauty and warmth within those storylines as well. So seeing the interaction here, especially through that contrast of the cool and the light, the soft snow falling and the harsh light that is the healing here, I think it's just very beautiful. The next card we're looking at is The Princess Takes Flight. I love sagas like this, where the artwork just completely connects. I really like when, the three layers of the sagas do line up and make sense to what's happening, but just the whole connection here of the merchant people, I don't know, the just like regular townsfolk down at the bottom, the way that they're interacting with the princess, she's trying to escape, she's trying to live a healthy, natural life, but just the connection to Rapunzel here of her hair being connected back to that tower. She has an innocence with her being on this unicorn Pegasus creature, but the townsfolk see her as like an enemy. Just the story that's happening within the card is very reminiscent of Rapunzel, but I think it's also interesting to see that there is a softness to all of it. So the idea that, you might enemize, is that a word? Enemize someone else because they're an unknown. They represent something, this tower represents something that is evil and hidden away, and so they are fearful of her. I think is very interesting because she herself lived a very natural and healthy and peaceful life, calm, full of beauty, surrounded by nature and just all the simplicity things in life. So the idea here that the story is happening all within this art is very beautiful. I also think this is very storybook like. So the idea that the artwork here is connecting to that storybook, fairy tale kind of feeling, I think is such a wonderful job here by Julia. So very good job. And it also connects to the card here as well. The 3 different things that are happening. Exiling a creature. We're getting winds of those, nasty townsfolk down at the bottom. We're buffing up our creatures, getting flying. So that unicorn Pegasus creature, that makes sense. And then returning a card. So she is returning back to the world here. So I just think that the story of the artwork lines up with what's actually happening on the card very well. Werefox Bodyguard, I think, is a really interesting extended art option because I'm going to assume that this was an original, normal elf knight guy that's just, hanging out, doing his duty, going with this guy in the background, trying to protect his townsfolk, trying to rid the evil forest of all these bad creatures. But something happened. The full moon came out, or, he just was tired of dealing in the simplicity of things and wanted to unleash his rage, and, that's how he became the Werefox. So I think that him going undercover as a Werefox Bodyguard is very interesting because we can see the look of surprise on the person in the background. So I do think that this was an elf knight that has turned into a Werefox. So I just think that connection is really interesting and does play into the whole enchanted forest very well. He is going kind of crazy. He's got a lot of anger and frustration that we see him taking out here in his protector bodyguard self. So I love this. I think it is beautiful having the lighter background here so that we are able to focus more on the bodyguard there in the center. But I love also just the look of surprise on, I think that's going to be the person he's trying to protect. So some kind of royal person he's protecting. I think that the surprise on their face makes the fact that this was probably an elf knight transformed Werefox is just super interesting and a little funny. But I just think that the softness of it, the softness of the card with the fog there and the light background, really is interesting because of the anger that is being unleashed from the bodyguard. I also really love that, it does still feel like the haunted, enchanted forest that, probably is a forest of beautiful, life-giving things, but it is a eerie, kind of iridescent, feeling to it still. I think completely lines up with the fairy tale aspect of this world. So very good job. Love this card. We are going into blue here with Bitter Chill. We see our Ice Queen everywhere. I think that she is just overall very beautiful. I'm sure going to be tons of cosplays for her, but I love this card in particular because we are seeing the 2 sides to her, in my opinion. So, she is off on her own. She is trying to rule her own kingdom away from her sisters, away from their rule. She's trying to find her own identity, her own magic. So I think that idea is really interesting that she is trying to find power in solitude to stand on her own, but there is a loneliness that comes to that. The cold and the quiet and the calm, it has its own sense of beauty and power in its own way, which is very unique, which we are seeing from, the softness of the bottom here of that white fog, that white snow, the drapering of her gown and her everything flowing in the wind with that snow flowing, but then it's still breaking because there is a hardening that happens here. The spikes of the icicles on her surrounded by the darkness of the background. I think that is on purpose. That there is a harshness, a loneliness, a bitterness that happens within trying to be off on your own like that. So it's definitely a fine balance, but one that's easily crossed over. So the high contrast of the white at the bottom versus the very dark blues, it's not a gradual transition. It is a very harsh, this is different definitions. So I think that's very true for the type of environment she's surrounded herself in, of this icy world. it can be calm and silent and beautiful and have a sense of power in its own way. But the fact that there is a harshness, a bitterness, the type of death that happens when you surround yourself by all that cold, is very true for probably just her whole storyline. But to me, it looks like an exposed heart of hers still. So I think that idea, partnered with her soft face here, I think she is wanting to make her way and she is having good intentions, but just the way that she has been forced to be apart from her sisters, to interact with this world, to make a stand, I think hardens you in a way that you're trying to prove yourself and you kind of lose yourself in the process. So having the exposed heart here, but that it's not completely frozen over, I think it shows that there can be hope, but you're still exposed to the elements sort of thing. Very interesting. My second blue card is going to be Spell Stutter. We have this gorgeous elf here, putting out all of its magic, trying to protect itself and its surroundings from this fire that's coming in. I know that this is going to be connected to a certain battle. We're not going to get into that. I just think, honestly, I'm picking this card because when I think of elves and fairies, like that whole like enchanted, magical fairyland, this is the kind of thing that I picture. This is the type of creature that is a fairy that you can only picture in a true fairy world. I mean, you have like the elf fairies with like our pointed ears or whatever, but when I think of like a true fairy, this is the type of thing I'm going to be picturing. It's like a more elemental kind of creature, connecting in with the surroundings, with the, its magic being all surrounding of it, but also coming from this creature. I just think this is beautiful fairy artwork. This is like the epitome of fairy to me. Okay, we're going to go with Sleep Cursed Fairy here. Again, very reminiscent of what I would picture an actual true fairy to look like, but I just love the connection of it to the world here. It is embracing the idea that, whatever this purple web coming up is, if it's connecting to the world for more power, if it is, getting help from the world, getting more energy from the ground, just that connection to earth and nature, I think lines up with fairies and that idea of their world very well. We also see that she has a calm face, that she is stretching out, she's lifted high from that some sort of flight here. So just all of the connection around her I think is beautiful, connecting her to Mother Nature. So that idea of fairies connecting to the world around them is great and beautiful, but also it kind of looks like like Aurora Borealis, like lights behind her, which I don't think is in the world. I think it's coming from her. So the idea that this fairy here is also putting out energy and power from herself, not just from the world, that they're able to give and take to each other, I think is really beautiful. Ego Drain. I think that this card is so interesting of artwork. The way that, an elf, I don't know, whatever this creature is like connecting to the person, taking from it that we're offering. There's a type of give and take here, that you can succumb to it because you're wanting to get something. I don't know. There's just such a power grab from this card, but in a way that both parties are like a part of it, I think is so interesting. I think that it ties very well to like us as humans wanting to live into this magical fairy tale world, and we can try to do our best to like achieve all these really great things, but if you're doing it for selfish reasons or reasons, I mean, you might just not even think that you're being selfish, but like if you're trying to live into the world in a way that you're only lifting yourself up, along the way it is going to be an ego stance. You are going to not be able to give into your community well. It is going to take a toll on your heart, on your kindness, on your spirit. So I think it's a warning that you will be fading into all of the ego-ness and the egocentric lifestyle that you are trying to surround yourself by, maybe for good intentions, if you are not careful. So I think that there is a magic around us all the time, which we can see from the elf fairy creature behind here. But I just think it is a cool power grab. And the idea that, all these golds are the colors happening here is on purpose for that too. So, really interesting power grab here. I am going to say Ego Drain is like one of my all-time favorite flavor text. You've wasted your life. Let's see if I can do any better with it. Oh, I love it. Love it. Really cool flavor text, really cool art. Faerie Fencing. I think this has really good high contrast, obviously with the beam of light here. They're fighting the two different fairies. The idea that their wings are a part of them, the flowing that's happening, it is still a very graceful thing. I think lines up with fairies super well. No matter what they're doing, they can be trying to kill another fairy, they're fencing, whatever. They could be trying to do the most ominous, menacing thing in the world, and it's still going to look beautiful because they're fairies, which I think this card embodies. I love that the beam of light is here so that we can truly get like a glimpse as to what is truly happening around them. Overall, I just think that it really hints to the idea that fairies are always going to be this type of presence in the world that looks like they're doing a beautiful thing, and that's why they can get away with so much, because to humans and everyone else, like, it looks like they're these ethereal, wonderful creatures, and it's hard to say no to them, right? And so maybe that's why all this horrible things post Phyrexian is still happening in the world, because we want to trust the fairies. We want to believe that they're doing good for us because they are these beautiful, magnificent creatures. But at the end of the day, they still have ominous hearts, dark hearts. So I think it's a beautiful thing. They're going to do whatever they can with grace. They're going to be fighting, fencing, killing with grace. It's going to look beautiful, but it's still not going to be the best scenario at the end of the day. They still have dark hearts in them. So artwork, I think, really matches the lore that's happening here. I know you guys are going to come at me. This is not like a quote unquote beautiful card, but I want to point out some really interesting artistic things that are happening here, which is why I chose Raging Battle Mouse. I think the mice in this set are unparalleled. Rakdos Ras is just such a crazy combination with this set. So kudos to all of our micey friends out there. I really love this card because he is crazy, right? This Raging Battle Mouse, he looks insane. He looks terrifying. But the artistic things that I love happening here is the fact that the mouse in the middle, he is so crisp and clean and like such a pristine artwork happening here, whereas everything else around him is blended and blurred, and to where you are truly focusing on the battle mouse. I think that is a difficult thing to do artistically, to have everything else blended, blurred in a way that we are having that crisp centerpiece. So the fact that that's even happening is very, very well done. But then the idea that everything is connecting to the mouse in a way that it is seamless. Typically, if you have like a blended background and like a crisp thing, centerpiece, focal item like this, it looks like it's just like stamped on top of it. That's pretty much like a sticker that's going to be placed on top of this artwork, but it all seamlessly blends together. I think part of that is due to the fact that these prism shards of light coming out of our mouse here, it is very beautiful, and it is connecting those pieces of the blended background to our rat here, our raging rat. So I just think it's really interesting. And those prisms, they're beautiful too. I love the facial expression on our rat here. I love him being in action. I think there's a lot of really interesting things happening in this artwork. So Rudy, wonderful job. This card is so cool. I think it needs more love, especially for the artwork. So I hope that you guys are appreciating the contrast of the crisp, clean rat and our blended, Orcan background here. I just think it's super, super cool. Okay, so Witch's Mark is a really interesting card because to me it definitely has that saga vibe where like there's multiple layers happening all within the same artwork. We have like something in the bottom if you focus, something in the middle if you focus, and something at the top if you're just focusing on that. So the idea of all of the connection here is really interesting. I love how all the pieces fit together. I love that there's like a mandala feeling of all of the connectedness with the symmetry that is happening in this picture. So just the way that it flows all together, no matter where you're looking, I think there's going to be something new. So that's why I really love this artwork. No matter where you're going, you're getting something new out of it. You're getting a new feeling, a new connection, a new story piece, which is why I just love artwork in the first place. When you really are connecting with a piece of artwork, you're trying to find something new no matter where you're going. You're not going to get bored with it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's especially true for Witch's Mark. Down at the bottom, being masked there, gaining the power of connecting with this dark side, you are fully embracing, you're allowing it to happen, this crazy thing, you see that with that central person being masked. But then if you look at, her armor or his armor, whatever, their armor down at the bottom, they're actually kind of like demon faces on their own, right? Like they're screaming off to the side, which is connecting to the ominous, creepy, twisting background. I'm not really sure what that is. But then if we go to the central focus point, you know, that witch there, you know, she is, you know, the one in control. She is, you know, feeling like she is powerful by putting this mask on. She's making her coven bigger, or, you know, making her army bigger, whatever it may be. She's allowing this dark magic to spread, you know, allowing her power to grow. So I think it plays into her storybook well. But then there's actually those, you know, two demon eyes up top, showing that there is a bigger, larger presence behind her. So it's always going to be a hierarchy. But the way that the horns on her cape connect as the fangs for that figure in the background, I think is very interesting. And then just connecting all of that swirling red, you know, from those demon screams at the bottom, I think, you know, could be representative of maybe some like fur for like a demon werewolf thing of those glowing eyes. I don't know. There's so many options here, possibilities. It's just all of the connection and the craziness, I think, is really hard to make it, you know, connect all so well like it did here. So that's super cool to see. But the idea that no matter where you're looking, you're not going to be bored, I love Witch's Mark for that. Finally, going into some green, we're going to be looking at another saga here, the Huntsman's Redemption. This, I think, just looks like, you know, you're stumbling into the enchanted forest, you're on a quest to find like an artifact, and here's like this, you know, like rune that people come to commune with the spirits or their dead ones, or to pray or to find peace, find luck and hope. I don't know, but whatever this is, it's just so realistic and beautifully done. It's an altar of sorts, and I love the way that it is connected to, you know, the nature surrounding it, of the vines wrapping around it, all of those moonflowers off on the left, sweeping over, you know, our huntsman's axe here. I just think it's so interesting, the connection to like the old magic, but the new world. I love that this card just truly shows us that connection from old magic and new world, because, you know, we've been to Eldraine before, but this is a completely new experience. I'm also going to show a couple like tribute green cards, because the whole idea that we're in a fairy tale world lines up so well with just green cards in general. So Commune with Nature, I'm going to say this is like wicked twisted sister of Snow White. You know, we got all of our furry friends here coming along. I'm just gonna say she's like singing to them, asking them to come help her with some chores around the house. So maybe she turned the dwarves into these creatures because she is our wicked witch sister of Snow White. I don't know. I just think it's hilarious. And I just love the idea of, you know, the communing with nature, but still in a wicked way. I think is really fun. Brave the Wilds is also a beautifully done enchanted card. I think, you know, Little Red Riding Hood going through the forest, stumbling upon these like little fairies or glowing fruits that are actually poisonous, so it looks beautiful, but it's actually evil. I don't know. I just think it's just like so many possibilities here to like have little side quests, side journeys. I just think it's really interesting. But finally, with like Blossoming Tortoise, this is like true elvish fairy enchanted forest vibes. We have this huge tortoise that has so many like growing beautiful plants off of it that it just has created its own ecosystem. So all of our furry friends and birds and everyone is living with it, and it's a part of nature, and it is nature. I don't know, it's just that whole vibe that like something like a blossoming tortoise could be real. Like that would only ever happen in an enchanted fairy tale. So this is like the epitome of like fairy tale forest in my opinion. But of course I can't go on without talking about true storybook cards, because these story worlds we're going with, we got Beanstalk Wurm, that the artwork of this is done in like such a soft watercolor kind of way. It totally gives me storybook vibes. I think it's beautiful. Titanic Growth is storybook, you know, those soft like watercolor-esque kinds of things. It just looks like I'm at like 1800s, I'm flipping through a storybook, and like this is the type of artwork I would expect to see. Like if I'm in the 1800s and I'm picturing like I'm reading a book, and you know, this is the type of thing I feel like I would envision if I was alive at that time. I don't know, it's just like epitome storybook to me. But what do you think? Is this the right kind of vibe? I don't know. Let me know what you think. Finally, for a colorless card, I'm going to go with Prophetic Prisim here. it's just beautiful. You know, she has like a wicked look to her, but in a way that like she was kind of forced into it. But there's still such a soft, you know, like humbling aspect to her. I don't know if it's just like the chaos that's happening around her that's making her look more soft. You know, the prism is breaking. There's all these different pieces of the story world that we can picture from the prophetic prism, which hints to the prophetic part, duh. But just the connection here, I don't know. It shows the light and the dark of this world and the possibilities that are, you know, offered to each of us, that we can't take a dark side, we can't take a light side. No matter which way we're going, we're going to have new options. I think that's what I see here. So I like the idea that there is a darkness in all of us, but we can choose to find the light ways and to do good at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how long you've been stumbling or how long you've been going through dark times, there is a light side around every corner. You can always have that option. So I like that idea here. And then I'm also going to go with Evolving Wilds as like one of the most beautiful cards from this set. Evolving Wilds of all cards. I just think that, you know, the glow of the forest up top, like in the leaves and the canopy, like it looks like it's this beautiful thing, but down at the bottom, it looks more evil and ominous, like it's like a lava field kind of, but then there are still like sparkly fairy parts as well, with a very, very soft mountain-esque river-bound background. The contrast is so good here. The harsh dark to the soft, cloudy, you know, fluffy lightness of the background. I think it's really beautiful. This is probably my favorite Evolving Wilds I've ever seen. So for two colorless cards, I mean, Prophetic Prism and Evolving Wilds, they have a lot of the same color palette, so I think that's really interesting. Very, very well done. I think they both are very beautiful. To get into some multicolored cards, I'm going to go ahead and go with Eriette of the Charmed Apple. She looks so cool here. I love the idea that, you know, the enchanted forest is still taking over, that she has this stiff, cold, you know, cinder block, whatever throne that she's sitting on, but the you know, floral kind of undertones that are still happening in the background here of like all these like leaves and flowers that are still creeping and crawling their way into it. They're still connected to her darkness, but there is still that soft floral aspect, makes it feel enchanting, makes it feel fairy tale. So I love that. I love that, you know, she is completely claiming her throne in a way that it reigns true for the type of character she is. She's this dark, evil queen. You know, take a bite of my poison apple, but it looks beautiful and enchanting, right? The same thing of those evil fairies. You know, we're going to be beautiful. It's going to be great, but it's actually horrible and evil. I don't know. It's just, this card to me embodies her character so perfectly. Yenna, Redtooth Regent, also is very beautiful. If I could be like an elf noble or an elf fairy, this is kind of what I would picture. So the idea that like her wings are still connected to the forest, that her staff and her clothes, you know, they're still connected to Mother Nature in a way. I think that to me is what a true elf noble would be, that they are connected to Mother Nature. They are apart from fairies in a way that fairies are like their dark magic, and this elf here is a part of the light magic. So, you know, the glowing forest around her, everything is blooming and thriving. The light in the background is definitely a kind of light rather than the harsh lights that are happening with Eriette or some other evil character. So the light is definitely like, there's a dark, cool, I'll say cool. There's a cool light with Eriette, whereas there's a warm light with Yenna. So that contrast is interesting to see connected to characters. But even like the little squirrels in the background, they're supporting her. They're there for her. So I think it shows that like everything is still enchanted, whether you're in the dark, cool side or the light, warm side, but the way that it thrives and is blooming and blossoming in a way that is unparalleled when you are on the light side, I think shows the enchantedness of a fairy tale. So very beautiful. They're both blooming in their own ways. But the way that the dark and the light play together here is very interesting. For a full art card, of course I have to go with Talion, the Kindly Lord. This is amazing. Like, when I first saw this, my mouth dropped. There's so much power and striking beauty that is happening in this card. I think it's like, just take a moment, pause, like, appreciate the power of her wings. You know, there's that softness of the delicate structure of her wings, but the fact that there is like sharp lines still, I think plays into the fact that, you know, she's a fairy queen, powerful person. So there is still a softness and a lightness to her because she's a fairy, but the idea that everything is still harsh and strict and for a purpose plays to the power aspect. So I think it's just really interesting, this artwork. Of course, the full art is just like literally what, it's just so beautiful. For a dark fairy, I think this is so cool. Something else that's going to be a little bit more storybook is going to go into those showcase cards. So Twinning Twins, I love the showcase here. The showcase border connecting into like the artwork here is really, really interesting. It kind of has that like popping out of like a pop-up book, right? So it's like storybook artwork with like a pop-up book feel, which I think is fun. We also have Horned Loch-Whale. This is like complete like faded, coffee stained, cigarette stained paper storybook vibes, I think. It's like ominous, crazy, weird looking creatures that you would only see in like really old storybooks, but like that stained, like cigarette stained kind of paper, faded paper. This feels like if I were to flip the page, it would be like that crackling, you know? So to me, these are like awesome storybook artworks. But overall, this whole set is just amazing. There's so much beautiful artwork that really, really plays into the lore that we are going on this journey with. So that's my biggest and most favorite thing about this set, is the connection to the story. All right, so those are my top 15 prettiest cards from Wilds of Eldraine. I think this set did such a wonderful job telling stories, especially through the artwork. So kudos to all the artists out there that were hired by Wizards of the Coast. You guys did a wonderful job. I'm mostly excited about seeing the way that they interact with each other, all of the new takes, you know, the storybook kind of feel that some of those cartoony cards had, I think is really cool, especially for this set. But I just love seeing the way that our characters interact with each other across these artworks. So let me know if you thought I missed any cards. I'd love to hear what you think are your top 5 prettiest cards from this set. But also, this is actually a 2-part video because we missed out on all of the Enchanting Tales cards, and those are gorgeous. So make sure you watch part 2, which is coming out soon. It's going to be all of the prettiest cards of the Enchanting Tales set from Wilds of Eldraine. So make sure you check that out. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and as always, happy gaming.